Welcome to a Helldivers 2 tips video with some real life fun facts from an intensive care unit nurse. In the spotlight today, the jetpack. This thing has always been fun, but it is officially phenomenal. With now a 15-second cooldown instead of 20, more distance covered per jump, including a slightly higher verticality, I don't even dare express in numbers how much better that makes it. But it's big. Tip number 1. Keep the jetpack on cooldown. Maximize your movement. The natural inclination you might have is to not use your jetpack, unless you consider the leap you're about to make optimal. This is arguably one of the biggest mistakes we make as gamers, not wanting to use our cooldowns. The same way anyone who plays RPG games doesn't want to use their potions, in case I need them later. The point is, for every second you're not using it, it's a second your character could have been stronger, faster, more efficient. So especially with the jetpack post-patch, you can now cover giant distances if you simply use the jump pack every time this little indicator on your pack turns yellow. Once you get into the habit of constantly flying around, you'll never turn back, I promise. Tip number 2. Keep resupplies on cooldown. I gave this tip pre-patch, but it's a much better tip now. I mentioned in a previous video that it's a good idea to throw it near a console, so that you can always find your resupplies. That's no longer needed, since you can now see the resupplies on the minimap. So now, throw the resupplies towards the center of the map, every time they come off cooldown, regardless of where you are. You'll be flooding the map with resupplies in no time. Alternatively, if you feel like you're in a bad spot to throw a resupply, you can ask a teammate to do it instead, as long as you keep the resupply off cooldown. Which leads me to today's fun fact theme. Cynicism. There is definitely a chance I upset you with this topic. If I do, I apologize in advance. If I get you to smile for half a second though, I'll consider my goal achieved, which was to offer you perspective in a place where you thought that might be absent. Fun fact number 1. Cynics are the minority. The definition of cynicism is the belief that people are motivated purely by self-interest. I'm sure it feels like it's a lot more of them, but it has to do with our negativity bias. We will always notice them more. Think about it. When you're driving, who do you notice more? The person cutting you off, or the person politely giving you space to merge? Our brain likes to play us. So remember, most human beings are optimists. Enjoy. Tip number 3. Stun and run. The jetpack is the ideal hit and run backpack. Not a single backpack does it better, especially when combined with a stun grenade. Why kill everything if you can just stun it and then outrun your tail? They'll despawn soon enough anyway. During live streams, I often mention I believe the most efficient way to play the game is by stealthing. I'll definitely offer the alternative here. Perhaps a more efficient way is by hidden running. That can be relatively difficult though, but it's absurdly easy with the jetpack. The bugs can barely keep up with me. Honestly, I had way too much fun recording this run, so definitely try out the jetpack if you haven't.
Hellbomb arm! Clear the area!
Tip number 4. High ground always wins. I feel like this is a dead obvious tip, yet I also feel it's underutilized. If you can get the high ground, do it. Against both Terminids and automatons. The fact of the matter is, the game just gets a lot easier when enemies can't reach you, or shoot you. The jetpack, of course, lets you reach high ground that normally you would have no chance to. So be sure to abuse that fact to the fullest. Fun fact number 2. Cynicism is a choice. Our body has neurotransmitters designed to make us behave certain ways. Smoking, gambling, and alcohol, for example, trigger one called dopamine. Dopamine is known as one of the greatest drivers for self-development and exploration. Basically, the carrot your mind feeds you when you want to develop you. Hugging, kissing, caring, and helping each other trigger another, called Oxytocin. Interestingly enough, the carrot your mind feeds you when you want to bond and socialize with others. In both cases, we get a carrot. One of them, however, leads to a world in which you're pretty lonely, but as developed as you could possibly be, at least from a professional standpoint. The other? A world where your presence alone brings joy to those you care for. We have all the internal motivation we need to go either way. So pick your carrot. If you're enjoying this mix of game tips and real life fun facts, a like and a sub helps me out a lot. Thank you for caring. Tip number 5. Synergize. Your backpack or support weapon are usually the stratagems you're going to be using the most, purely from a time used point of view. Building around the item you're going to use the most is almost always a good idea. For example, I didn't bring a support weapon this run. The reason why is because I knew I was going to be running around the map like an absolute madman. Any support weapon I bring would force the opposite, to stand still just a bit longer. So instead, I just brought an extra red stratagem. That way, I could fly in, nuke stuff, stun grenade, and fly back out. The better you synergize, the more powerful your build will feel. Definitely fun to consciously practice building around a specific stratagem. Tip number 6. Nade between crossbow shots. You can shoot a crossbow dart about every 2 seconds, which means you can throw a grenade right after you shoot a dart, without losing any DPS. Essentially, that nullifies the relatively slow rate of fire that the crossbow has. This fact is true for slow guns in general. It also works for the eruptor, for example. You're basically using the downtime in between shots as uptime for your nades. Fun fact number 3. We prefer Oxytocin. Let me give you a choice. A. Be as wealthy, famous, powerful, and/or whatever other synonym you can find for successful as you could ever be, but never be able to tell whether someone is your friend or even your lover for the right reason anymore. Or, option B, live a mediocre life. No glory, no wealth, no fame. But you have enough food on the table and a roof above your head. And you're surrounded with people who care about you. Which one would you choose? The rich and famous lonely life, or the mediocre but loved one? I know very few people have asked this question that answer they'd rather be lonely and famous. Plenty who joke about it, to be fair. But when I ask, really? They always hit me with, no, of course not. Who the heck would want to be lonely? Probably a good reminder here. We've known plenty of rich and famous people who ended up taking their own lives, despite having achieved gigantic amounts of fame and fortune. So you would think, clearly the key to happiness is not individual development. Add to that, if you ask most people why they want to be rich, and you dig far enough into their mind, they'll end up saying something along the lines of, I'd love to be able to take good care of those I love. It seems that in the end, our brain will choose oxytocin over dopamine, any day of the week. Maybe we should start doing the same, a bit more consciously. My name is Faisal. Be well, and take care.